Hi, my name is Matthew Barker. I have cochlear implants. I made this documentary so that you can understand what cochlear implants are and how they work. So the next time you see cochlear implants, you'll know what they are. We interviewed Allison Beaver, who is an audiologist at Rocky Mountain Ear Center, and how cochlear implants work.
My name is Allison Beaver, and I'm an audiologist at Rocky Mountain Ear Center. I developed an interest in audiology quite by accident. I grew up with a mom who was hearing impaired. I never really understood hearing loss. I really believed that if my mom tried harder, she'd be able to hear me and understand what I was saying. I made up my mind that I wanted to be a speech pathologist. I finished my undergraduate degree in Alberta, Canada, and then I transferred to CU Boulder, where I started a master's degree in speech pathology. And I think just because the numbers were low and they needed more audiology students, I was recruited into the audiology program. And it was during that time that I really discovered a passion for audiology and a better understanding of what my mom went through growing up as a kid with hearing loss, and then trying to raise 4 kids, not always being able to hear or understand what we were saying. I've been involved in this field for 24 years. I started as a Cochlear Fellow for Cochlear Corporation in 1992, and I've been working in the implant field for 24 years. I think the most important thing for a cochlear implant patient to know before they receive their implant is that there is hope that they can hear better. A lot of cochlear implant patients don't believe that. They have been living in a world of silence, or perhaps in a world of sound, but the sound doesn't make any sense. They've had a very difficult time understanding what people are saying. They've started to withdraw. They can't talk on the phone. They don't want to go out in public. And they lack hope that it can be better and clear and easier to understand. So I think the most important thing for an implant candidate to know is that there can be light at the end of the tunnel and a technology that can help them hear better. I think that the most important thing that a cochlear implant patient needs to know once they receive their implant is that cochlear implants aren't as good as normal hearing. And it's not like everything is perfect after you get a cochlear implant. It takes a lot of work. There are still many situations that are very difficult for patients who have implants. Listening to music can be challenging. Trying to understand other people in a noisy environment. Trying to understand what's being said in a noisy classroom. I think there are situations that are very, very challenging and difficult for implant patients, and I think it's important for them to know that this technology is not as good as having normal hearing, and that it requires a lot of work to make it successful. I think one of the biggest struggles for cochlear implant patients is how much they have to work. Many, many patients that I work with expect that the day their device is turned on, they will go out and understand everything everyone is saying. They will tell me that even before they had their implant activated, perhaps a couple days after surgery, people approached them and said, "How are you hearing now?" And they would say, "Well, I haven't had my implant turned on yet." The day it's turned on, many friends and family expect that everything's perfectly normal. And again, they are approached by family members and friends saying, "How are you hearing now? It's been activated. Can you hear me now?" And I think one of the biggest struggles is that it's not like turning on a switch where everything is immediately clear. It's just like having a knee replaced or a hip replaced, where you work with a physical therapist for weeks and weeks and weeks to get your legs stronger so that you can walk and run again. A cochlear implant is a similar technology in terms of needing therapy and time to make it better. So I think one of the biggest struggles that I see patients report is that this is a lot of work. This took a little time to make sense of what was going on. I recall a patient I saw about a month and a half ago who had his device activated. And the day it was activated, he was able to understand quite a bit. And he left, and I didn't sense how frustrated he was. And he returned back to the clinic 2 weeks later, and he said when he came in, "Wow, this technology is amazing. I am amazed at all of the things I'm hearing that I could never hear with hearing aids. But I have to be honest with you. 2 weeks ago, when you turned it on, I was overwhelmed. And when I drove home with my wife, I said to her, I don't know, but maybe I've made a mistake. This is so weird. I don't know if I like it." And it really takes time for the implant patient to make sense of what they're hearing with the technology. I think the future of cochlear implants is going to be amazing. I think what I envision 10 years from now is completely implantable cochlear implants where there's nothing worn on the outside. The rechargeable battery life for the internal device is 15 years or more. Patients may need to undergo a battery replacement, but what I envision for the future of cochlear implants is that it's completely implantable and there's nothing worn on the ear encumbering participants in sports. There's a very effortless connection to Bluetooth, but that everything is worn internally. And I think we're going to see some really enormous changes in the next 10 to 15 years in this field. So how the process starts is before the implant can work, a surgeon makes an incision behind the ear, draws the skin flap forward, creates in the bone a place to seat the internal device. The internal device sits underneath skin and muscle. It's not visible, and there are anywhere from 16 to 24 electrodes that are placed in the cochlea, the hearing organ. The reason a patient might need a cochlear implant is because the little nerve endings inside the cochlea no longer work. So the electrodes that are placed in the cochlea replace the dead hair cells. The patient then returns 2 weeks after surgery, and they're fit with an external processor. The external processor has microphones and a battery. The microphones receive the signal. The signal is sent up a cable to what's called a coil or external antenna. A radio frequency carrier sends that information across the skin to the internal antenna. The external processor is coupled to the internal device by a magnet. The computer chip receives the message that's coming from the outside world and tells the specific electrode that it needs to fire in order to stimulate a specific sound. That's how the cochlear implant works.
As Allison said, it is not easy to hear for the first time. It takes many years of experience just to learn how to hear from a cochlear implant. This next interview is Stephanie Olson, who lives in Evergreen, Colorado, to talk about what it's like to have cochlear implants.
My name is Stephanie Olson, and I wanted to talk with you a little bit about the cochlear implant that I have. I was identified at the age of 3 with a severe to profound hearing loss, fitted with very powerful hearing aids. And then about 10 years ago, I decided to look into getting a cochlear implant to hear better and to have access to more sounds. I'm working at Children's Hospital Colorado. That's where I was working at the time before that, I was a special ed teacher, and I really enjoyed it, but I really like the hospital environment. And I work with families and children that come in and they find out that maybe their baby has hearing loss, and I help answer questions about that, talk to them about their communication options, and I also work on the cochlear implant team if that's something that the family desires for their child. One of the things that I've really enjoyed about my cochlear implant is the ability to hear better in the dark or without having to look right at a person, to be able to hear conversation behind me if I'm on a hike or if we're camping and it gets dark later in the evening. It's nice to be able to have more sound that I can hear better and clearly. And to me, that's been a wonderful gift. I really wish that people could understand that when you get a cochlear implant, it takes a lot of work. It's not just that you have this surgery and then ta-da, all of a sudden you can hear. It's a process. It takes time for the brain to process new sounds that maybe it hasn't had the opportunity to hear before. And I really wish people could understand that and not expect quick results, and to understand that the cochlear implant is another tool, a piece of technology that helps people hear better. It doesn't change who you are. You're still who you are. You just have the ability to hear more or hear different sounds if that's what you desire. Worst thing that I can think of about cochlear implants, and I absolutely love mine. It was a good choice and a good decision for me, but I would say the worst thing is that the miracle of technology, as wonderful as it is that we're at the mercy of our battery supply. That miracle of technology is only as good as my battery supply. So when my batteries run out, then I don't have all that sound that I love to have. And I would say in a perfect world with cochlear implants, that the choice and the process would be one that would be easier for parents to embrace, that there wouldn't be such a big struggle or decision-making process. Because it really is a good thing. It really is a good thing. And I understand that parents need time to go through that process and make the best decision, but I think too much time gets spent on the surgery, and the best is yet to come. If you can just get through that surgery day and in a perfect world not be afraid of that, then there's so much more to come. Thank you.
Now that you've heard from a person who has cochlear implants and an audiologist who explains how they work, you can now know what cochlear implants are when the next time you see them. People who have cochlear implants are just like you. The only difference is they have bionic hearing to hear.